The 30th floor of Harrington Industries gleamed with the kind of silence only wealth could buy. Every surface, glass, chrome, marble, reflected the world of people who believed they were untouchable. In this place, titles carried more weight than humans, and those without one became part of the architecture. For 2 years, Bailey Morgan had learned to move like a shadow through these halls. She cleaned the offices before sunrise, wiped fingerprints off doors no one thanked her for polishing, and emptied trash bins without anyone ever learning her name. That's what happened when you were the help. You disappeared, a ghost in a uniform. Her blonde hair was always tied back tight, her eyes always lowered, her voice never raised. She had perfected invisibility after life forced her to, ever since she'd abandoned EMT school to take care of her brother during his endless hospital visits. She had learned the same rule again and again. Being noticed only ever brought pain. But at 7:43 a.m. on a particularly quiet Tuesday morning, the skills she had spent years mastering shattered, because death walked past her wearing a $3,000 suit. Cole Harrington, youngest CEO the company had ever appointed, brilliant, cold, untouchable, stepped out of a private elevator. He moved like a man used to controlling entire worlds with a single sentence. But today, something was wrong. Terribly wrong. Bailey smelled it before she even looked up. A faint metallic scent brushed past her, a smell that didn't belong in this pristine hallway. Not cleaning chemicals. Not machinery. Iron. Her cleaning rag slipped from her fingers. The scent hit her like a flashback she'd buried deep. Her baby brother lying pale and trembling in a hospital bed, the room thick with the same iron smell minutes before the doctors confirmed internal bleeding. That smell had burned itself into her memory in a way she could never scrub out. She lifted her head. Cole Harrington walked past her with his jaw clenched, one hand pressed tightly against his left side beneath his impeccably tailored jacket. His face was chalk white, his steps a fraction too unsteady for a man who prided himself on perfection. Sweat glistened across his brow, despite the building's air-conditioned chill. He doesn't know, she thought, heart-hammering. He has no idea he's dying. Every instinct she had screamed at her to stay silent. Stay invisible. Stay safe. A cleaning lady didn't address executives, much less the CEO, especially not with something like this. But she remembered her brother's face. Pale, fading, because she'd stayed quiet too long. Her voice, when it came, was barely a whisper. "Sir?" To her shock, Cole stopped. He didn't turn around immediately. When he finally did, his eyes found her kneeling beside a row of polished baseboards, eyes dark and cold and startlingly sharp. For the first time in 2 years, he actually saw her. Bailey swallowed, her voice trembling. "Did you have a fall recently? You're holding your side, and you're very pale. I can smell iron. You might," she hesitated, terrified. "You might be bleeding internally." Silence. Sharp, suffocating silence. Cole's expression shifted from surprise to something frostbitten and dangerous. "I'm fine," he said, each word clipped. "Thank you for your concern. Stay in your lane." He turned to walk away. Something inside Bailey, some fragile thread she kept wrapped around her heart, snapped. She stood. She never stood, but she did now. "Sir, please?" "I'm serious." A snide voice cut through the hallway like a knife. Well, do cleaners diagnose people now?" Chad Reynolds, the CEO's impeccably groomed assistant, and the man who made Bailey's life miserable for 2 straight years, appeared with a smirk that belonged on a villain in a courtroom drama. He glanced at Bailey like she was the dirt he was paid to keep off Cole's shoes. "I'm sure Mr. Harrington appreciates your creative attempt at getting his attention," Chad drawled. "But maybe stick to mopping floors. That's what you're paid for." Bailey felt her face burn. Shame poured over her like boiling water. Cole said nothing. He just walked away, still pale, still sweating, still gripping his side, still dying. And Bailey stood frozen, watching him disappear down the hall, knowing with certainty that made her stomach twist. If someone didn't stop him, he would be dead within days. By noon, whispers spread through the building like wildfire. Bailey heard them while wiping counters in the 15th floor break room. "Did you hear?" The cleaner told Mr. Harrington he's dying. Is she insane? Probably desperate for attention. Her hands shook as she scrubbed the counter. At 2 p.m., she was summoned to HR. The small conference room felt colder than the hallways upstairs. Chad sat at the head of the table, fingers folded neatly, smiling like a man delighted by the chance to ruin someone's day. Patricia from HR sat beside him, clearly uncomfortable. Bailey, Chad began with theatrical calm, we need to discuss inappropriate workplace behavior. I was trying to help. Help? Chad laughed. You approach the CEO and diagnose him with internal bleeding based on what? A smell? I studied to be an EMT, she whispered. My brother has a bleeding disorder. I know the signs. Studied, he repeated pointedly. Meaning you're not certified. Meaning you have no authority. Meaning you overstepped spectacularly. Patricia looked down at her hands. This is your warning, Chad said. One more incident, and we'll be having a very different conversation. Bailey nodded mutely and fled. By the time she reached the service elevator, she was shaking too hard to press the button. Tears blurred her vision. You ruin everything. Why did you speak? Down in the basement, in the humming security room, someone else had seen everything. Mrs. Lillian Whitman, the 64-year-old head of security, watched the hallway replay on her monitors. Former Army nurse. No patience for fools. That child sees more than the entire executive floor combined, she muttered. And they treat her like she's furniture. She found Bailey crying in the supply closet. You made nothing worse, child, Mrs. Whitman said, sitting beside her on an overturned crate. You noticed something real. You had courage to speak. Everyone thinks I'm crazy, Bailey whispered. That doesn't make you wrong. I smelled that metallic scent in Iraq, the older woman added softly, on soldiers who swore they were fine until they collapsed. You're not imagining this. That man is in danger. Bailey looked up, red-eyed. What can I do? I'm nobody. You're the one who sees, Mrs. Whitman said. And sometimes that's exactly who save a life. 2 days later, HR reassigned Bailey to cleaning executive rooms. No explanation given. It felt like a trap dressed up as a promotion. Thursday afternoon, while cleaning the main boardroom, she found a used tissue on the table. She reached to toss it and froze. The metallic scent hit her like a punch. Stronger, much stronger. Her heart dropped. He was getting worse. This time, fear didn't stop her. She walked straight to Cole's office, knocked, and when he gestured for her to enter, she stepped inside despite her shaking legs. Sir, she said, voice trembling but firm, the smell is stronger. You're paler. You keep holding your side. Please, you need to be checked. If you fell and hit something, you could be bleeding slowly and... Bailey, he cut in softly, almost gently. I appreciate your concern, but I've been through worse. I know my body. Do you? She whispered. Because my brother said the same thing, until he nearly died. Something flickered in his expression. Pain memory, something human beneath the cold exterior. Then the office door burst open. Chad stormed in, furious. Are you serious? Sir, I'm so sorry. She was just leaving. He grabbed Bailey's arm, not hard, but firm, dragging her from the office as Cole looked away. That night, alone in her tiny apartment, Bailey replayed the scene over and over. Her phone buzzed. Final warning. Stay away from executive staff. Chad. She covered her face with her hands. Maybe everyone was right. Maybe invisibility was safer. But in her mind, she could still smell iron and see the way Cole pressed aside when he thought no one was looking. Arya didn't know when she finally slept that night, only that she woke up before dawn, sitting upright against the cold brick wall of the alley as though her body had never learned how to rest properly. The city was still hushed, the sky purplish-gray. Her fingers, stiff with cold, curled around the same sealed envelope she had carried into the bank the day before. But something was different. A soft rustle sounded across the alley mouth. A black car, sleek, powerful, nothing like the rusted vehicles that usually rolled through this part of town, slowed to a stop. In its window, she saw her own reflection, small, tired and trembling slightly. The door opened. Out stepped Mr. Malik. He didn't look like the kind of man who woke early unless he needed to. Yet here he was, wearing a charcoal coat, scarf neat, hair combed back in a way that almost made him seem gentler. Almost. Arya scrambled to her feet. She wasn't sure if she should run, apologize, or clutch the envelope tighter. He approached slowly. "I asked for you at the shelter," he said. "They said you hadn't come back." Arya lowered her eyes. "I didn't know if I could." Malik nodded slowly. "Do you still have the letter?" She held it up. Something flickered in his eyes. Not pity, not quite softness, more like realization. The kind that anchors itself in a person, unwilling to leave. "Let's walk," he said. They walked in silence through the awakening streets. Malik didn't rush her. In fact, he slowed his steps to match her short stride. They stopped at a small park across from a row of bakeries. The warm smell of fresh bread drifted through the cold morning air. "Sit," he said gently. Arya perched on the bench's edge, tense and alert. People like him didn't talk to girls like her. The world wasn't built that way. Malik cleared his throat and looked out over the park. "I read your file last night." "All of it?" She froze. Her file, the one she didn't know existed. "When you left everything on my desk, the bank security chief did a check. Standard procedure." He paused. "You've moved between shelters for 4 years. You've worked at a grocery, a laundry, and a warehouse. You've taken care of your grandmother on your own since you were 11. Arya blinked hard. She hated when adults recited her life back to her, like a list of failures she never chose. "I'm not telling you this to embarrass you," Malik said quietly. "I'm telling you because most people wouldn't survive a month of what you survived." A lump rose painfully in her throat. "But I didn't come to you for a job yesterday. I only wanted a chance," he finished for her. She nodded. He reached into his coat and pulled out the same contract she had seen yesterday. Only this time, folded beside it was a new sheet. "What's that?" she asked. "A different offer." He placed it between them. "Internship, part-time, paid, flexible hours, training included." She stared at him. "But why?" Her voice cracked. "Because," he said, turning to her at last, "sometimes the world ignores people it shouldn't, and sometimes someone needs to look twice." Arya pressed her fingers to her eyes, trying not to cry again. Malik pretended not to notice. "Now," he added, "the internship includes one more thing." He tapped the paper. "A small monthly allowance." "For me?" she whispered. "For both of you," he corrected softly. "You and your grandmother." She couldn't speak. Every word stuck in her throat. But he wasn't finished. "There's transportation assistance, meals during training, and—" he hesitated, as though struggling with the last part. "I'd like to help with the hospital bill. If you'll allow me." Arya flinched. "You don't have to." "I know," he said firmly. "I'm offering because you were brave enough to ask for something yesterday that most adults are terrified to ask for. Help." The sun peeked over the buildings, brushing the frost-tipped grass with gold. Arya looked down at the contract. Her reflection blurred in the glossy paper. This didn't feel real. None of it did. "What if I mess up?" she whispered. "Then you'll learn," Malik said. "That's what training is for." She swallowed. "What if people at the bank don't like me there?" He gave a small smile, the kind you don't expect from a man who wears $800 shoes. "People don't have to like you," he said. "They only need to respect what you can do." Arya clutched the envelope to her chest. Her mother's handwriting felt warm against her fingers. "She'd want me to try," she murmured. "I think she'd be proud," he replied. For the first time in a long time, a fragile spark of hope flickered in Arya's chest. She wasn't sure if she trusted it yet. Hope had sharp teeth. Hope disappointed. But something here, something about this man, about this moment, felt different. Malik stood. "Shall we go? I'll drive you to the hospital to visit your grandmother. After that, we can discuss your first day." Arya blinked. "My first day?" His eyes softened. "Unless you don't want it." "I want it," she blurted, too loud, too fast. Malik laughed under his breath. Not mocking, genuine. "Good." They walked back toward the car. She moved quickly. He slowed down like he had all the time in the world. As she reached for the door handle, she stopped and looked up at him. "Why me?" she asked one last time. Malik held her gaze for a long moment, the morning light catching the faint exhaustion in his eyes. Exhaustion she hadn't noticed yesterday. "Because yesterday," he said, voice low, "a little girl walked into a bank full of powerful people and reminded me what courage looks like." Her chest tightened. "And because," he added quietly, "I'd like to be the kind of man who doesn't ignore courage." Arya swallowed the lump in her throat, opened the door, and climbed in. The leather seat felt too soft, too expensive for someone like her. But she stayed. She didn't run. As the car pulled onto the main road, Arya glanced at Malik in the driver's seat. Not the banker in the glass tower, not the man everyone respected from a distance, but the person who had actually looked at her, listened, and chosen to help. She held the envelope tighter. The world felt a little less cold, a little less impossible, a little more hers. And for the first time in years, Arya Nolan let herself believe that tomorrow could be better than yesterday, that she could build something, that she deserved to. Because sometimes all it took to change a life was one moment of courage, from a girl who refused to give up, and from a man who finally remembered what it meant to see someone.